Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard it, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Let me just stop there for a second. Let me just start with saying, how many of you, upon hearing that a friend of yours was ill, someone you were close to, would have said, "Well, this illness isn't any big deal"? Okay, a few of you, that's good. Amanda, that's good. I don't want to be your friend anymore. This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory. I just want you to ponder. A close friend of yours is very ill. Let's begin at verse 5. Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Okay. How many of you would linger and not go see your friend after you heard that he had become ill? Just asking. This is one of the things that really bothers me about this entire passage, that Jesus decides he's going to stay put for 2 more days. Verse 7. Then after this he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the Jews are just now trying to stone you, and you are going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? And those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them." After this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him." Well, there's another thing thrown into the mix here. Are you getting all of this? Lazarus is ill, Jesus has delayed, and then all of a sudden, we discover that going back to Judea is a dangerous thing. That they're prepared, the people who stand against Jesus, they're prepared to kill him. Okay, so emotions begin. Fear in particular. And we continue. Lazarus has only fallen asleep, right? Right. After saying this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I'm going there to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he'll be all right." I just love the Gospel of John. The disciples never get it. They never get it. They're always just kind of going off on their own trajectory. But you know what? I am guilty. As a disciple of Jesus, I would have said the same darn thing. If he's fallen asleep, he'll be all right. Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead. That's pretty straightforward, isn't it? I mean, Jesus clearly had the inkling that he had already delayed too long, that Lazarus was dead, that his friend was dead. And I have to give him credit. I mean, he laid it out there for them. He just laid it out there. Sometimes that's the only thing we can do, right? That this is the way it is. Period. He goes on, this is verse 15, if you're following along, and I hope you are. For your sake, I am glad I was not there so that you may believe. But let us go to him. Thomas, who is called the Twin, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. Okay, you think that's kind of a silly thing to say, right? But don't forget, exactly, you're walking with a man who is already marked for death, and you are his disciple. Come, let us go die with him. It's what Thomas's way of saying, oh, all right then, let's tough this thing out. Let's brazen this thing out. 17. When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Finally, we're getting to something really, really, really deep and genuine. She knew Jesus. She knew her brother's need. If you had been here, you can almost see her wagging her finger, right? If you had been here, my brother would be alive today. I wonder if she knows my mother. The people who really know how to push your buttons, you know? Martha knows. She comes to Jesus. She said, you know what? If you had been here, my brother would not have died. And then she continues in verse 22, but even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Well, you know, the Jews at the time, and lots of people at the time, believed there was going to be a general resurrection, and that everyone who was righteous would rise to new life. And that's all that Martha's saying is, yeah, I know he'll rise again. Sure, like everybody else. Jesus goes on. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, they will live. And everyone who believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Oh, it's interesting. She doesn't really answer that question, does she? Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, the one coming into the world. There's a tremendous sort of interplay here. She is not getting the point. And neither, quite frankly, would I if I were in her position. Would you? Let's continue in 28. When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, the teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here," what? "My brother would not have died." They were raised by the same mother. "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." You know, Mary's a great passive-aggressive person here. You know, it's Martha who goes out to meet Jesus first, and Mary doesn't decide to go until her sister comes back and says, "The master is asking after you." So she arrives with the same exact words as her sister. What do you think about that? I'm so sympathetic with those women. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. And we get to verse 33. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Jesus was deeply disturbed and deeply moved. Troubled is actually the Greek word that's used there. I don't know about you, but every time I deal with someone who has passed away, there is a sense not only of grief, but also of other things sort of mixed in. And I can't help but feel that Jesus was feeling not just grief, but also remorse at not having come sooner. That he was believing from the beginning that somehow this was another healing he was going to do to show the glory of God. In staff meeting, Dwayne and I looked at one another and called this Jesus' oops moment. I made a mistake. I didn't come in time. And maybe arrived at the point of view of, I'm going to have to fix this. You know what I'm saying? You and I couldn't fix it. But Jesus arrived deeply moved and troubled. Deeply moved and troubled. 38. Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Figure that. Take away the stone. No, Lord, he's been dead for 4 days. We don't do stuff like that. And then Jesus, in verse 40, said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, "Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe you sent me." I believe Jesus probably did say something like that to John. I thank you for having heard me. Those additional verses are kind of suspect. They sound an awful like the Gospel of John trying to say, I know you always hear me, but I'm doing this for the crowd's sake. Really? The Jesus I know wouldn't have said that. When he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. This is the final episode. And as long as you don't have much imagination about having the feet and hands bound and figuring out how he got out of the tomb that way, you at least recognize that Jesus is ordering the community there to unbind him and let him go. I believe that this is a story about somehow redeeming a moment in Jesus' own life that was an oops moment. And that each one of us have moments in our lives when we've just done something that we probably are remorseful about. And the issue is redeeming those moments. You and I are not Jesus. We can't do what he did to be able to correct the situation. But what we can do is wait for the redemption that God will bring to every single moment when we feel remorse. So if you feel it now, if you feel remorse for any reason, I want you to be aware that God will redeem that. That God will bring that in such a way that you will be edified and willing to rejoice. Amen.